Rambling Canuck, back for another What If series with Honstar, as always. How are you doing, Han?
I'm doing pretty good, Rob. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. So today we're going to tackle, well, this crazy Canadian is going to try to tackle the Civil War in the United States. And we're going to look at three different what ifs. One, what if it becomes a stalemate? Two, what if the South wins? So for that, we'll look at what would it have maybe looked like and how probable would it have been. And three, just because, the Canadian has to throw in a little curveball, what if the British decide, while they're fighting, be a pretty good time to get our colony back. So we're going to look at all those three little things, but we're going to start with what happens if it becomes a stalemate. What are your thoughts on that, Han?
I think the only way that would happen would be if somebody propped the South up, because obviously towards the end of the war, the South was give out, so it would have took, like we kind of talked about a little bit off air, it would have took like France or somebody coming in to kind of prop up the South for whatever motive they had for propping up the South. I don't see the British propping up the South.
No. Although France, maybe because of the them still being a little annoyed at the Union for the whole, we helped you with your War of Independence, and then when we needed you, you weren't there.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a deal struck between the South and France.
And I think that even then, I think the only thing that would end up being would be a stalemate somewhere on the map.
Yeah.
And it would basically turn into World War I style trench warfare.
So
until they went to the table.
Yeah. So let's say that they're at the stalemate, and it's just become like a killing field, like in World War One will be eventually. What do you see that the South being okay with by the end of that? Do you think they're going to want to be like completely succeeded, or do you think they'd rejoin? What do you think that looks like?
I think the South would want to be allowed to secede and basically become their own country.
Okay.
We quit fighting. We go to the peace table. You stay up there. We're going to stay down here.
Yeah.
I don't know that they would have. At that point, I don't know that they would have went for anything other than that.
Yeah, because I mean,
I don't
there's been
see
enough
them,
blood on the table that
I don't see them cowing down to the north and being like, "Hey, let's be brothers again. We'll all just fold back in and be fine."
Yeah, especially if they're propped up by somebody.
Yeah, the only way they go to the table and anything they'll take from the table is let us secede, which is what we've been wanting to do to start with. We just end this thing at the peace table, and you're on your own. We're on our own.
How long do you think a piece like that would last, though? Like, realistically?
That's tricky to say, because it would all depend on, because like we were talking about, there was more industry in the North, and they somewhat relied on products they got from the South for industry. So it's like, well,
independent. Yeah.
If we went to the peace table, okay, now we're good with each other, but can we still trade with each other?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the stick point, right?
Because, as we were saying, at that time, the South was more an agrarian society. They hadn't really got on board as much as the North with the Industrial Revolution. So they're either going to need help from some other country to import and export things with, or they're still going to have to trade with the North. And then, well, can you keep that relationship going after you just fought a bloody war for years and years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because honestly, I don't see the South surviving on their own at the end of the day.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
Unless they just had somebody help, like we said, if somebody helps prop them up and they bring in the Industrial Revolution kind of stuff to where they can basically be their own autonomous.
Yeah, a rough 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would still be rough to start with, just like Reconstruction was. But that's the only two ways I see the South being able to stay independent, is either somebody helps them set up all the industry they need to set up to basically be autonomous, or somehow these two now separate countries can still maintain trade with each other.
Yeah, that would be important, I think.
And I just don't know that that could even be that could be done after such a horrible
Yeah,
war that
after
lasted
everything
so
that was
many
done,
years.
yeah.
Like
And I mean, if
tomorrow,
we're talking about, it going to a stalemate, what historically happened would be much worse.
oh yeah,
If it goes to a stalemate, it's going to be what historically happened times 10
yeah,
for body count, for, egregious things done on either side.
yeah.
Um,
Which makes it even harder to then sustain a relationship between the two now separate countries.
yeah.
I just don't see. Now maybe eventually, if the South stayed independent and had help from somebody else, maybe eventually they could start trading with each other or whatever. But I don't see within the first however many years that could even be a thing.
Yeah.
And I think if the South was left to their own devices, at least at the beginning, without help from somebody, they would flounder, and it would either be a failed thing altogether, and maybe then that's when they would go back to the table and be like, hey guys, we kind of want to come back. We kind of want to come back because
Yeah.
we can't
Yeah.
really live autonomously down here because we don't have all the industry you do.
Yeah. Okay, so now for the second one, which I think is going to be a little bit of a shorter conversation, a complete South victory. What do you think the odds of that? Like, realistically, within a what-if scenario, I mean, we're batting 1,000 here on what could help that happen.
I don't want to say zero, but it's a very, very, very low chance I think there could ever actually been. I mean, of course, history, hindsight is 2020, but unless some major thing happened,
Like the British helping the South.
yeah, the British or the French or Spain or whoever
Yeah.
decided.
No,
for
I don't
whatever
even think
reason.
with the France. I don't even think with France. I think you'd
You don't
need
think
the
they
British.
could prop them up enough? Yeah, you need.
You'd need the British.
Yeah, because
Just
you would-
because of the time we're talking about, and the British's reach and just power at
yeah,
the time,
and their navy,
and their navy. The navy alone would send
would break every blockade. The British very
Yeah.
easily could have broke every blockade there was during the Civil War because they still had the mightiest navy in the world.
Yeah,
So,
the Royal Navy comes in, and that's the end of the North blockade.
yeah.
Game
But
over.
I still, though, I mean, unless there's just a lot of help, I
Yeah.
still just don't see them being able to pull off a complete victory as they go all the way north and basically take everything over. Unless, again, they take enough over that they finally convince them to come to the table.
Yeah, and when they convince them to come to the table, they're on the higher side. So
That's-
they're the ones making the demands. The South, the North is the one going, look,
Yeah, that
whatever. Okay, fine. Here.
to me that would be the only way I could see a complete and total Southern victory is if they can put a hurting on them enough to bring them to the table. I don't see them just totally and completely annihilating the North and winning
Yeah,
that way.
Yeah, it's
I
a
see
hard
them-
thing to look
yeah,
at. Yeah.
I just don't see it in my mind anyway. I just don't see it ever being a thing that
Yeah.
they just totally steamroll all the way north and just take everything and annihilate, everybody. But if they
No.
could put enough hurting on them to bring them to the table, then
Yeah.
that could still end up being technically a Southern victory if they bring them to the table.
Yes. As long
see
as
that
they're.
I see that as the only way that the South could have a full victory in the Civil War.
Yeah, I pretty on point with you on that one. And then the final thing we'll look at is what happens if the British decide, well, we're missing a colony and we kind of got outsmarted the last time. They're fighting. Well, what happens if we throw a whole bunch of troops up there in Canada, bring in the Royal Navy? We could probably have this done in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, because at the time the military and everything was stretched so thin in the North because
Yeah.
they're not worried. no offense, but they're not worried about some Canadians running around in the snow drinking Tim Hortons. They're like, we got our own thing going on down here.
Yeah,
like you said,
we're a little busy.
they were stretched so thin
Yeah.
that with the Royal Navy in a very, very small amount of time could have basically busted every blockade and took over every port.
Yes.
Because neither the North nor the South could compete on the seas with the Royal Navy. I mean, there's no argument with that. And then if you have a nice little bunch of British soldiers up there in Canada and they just start making their way down, well, then what do? We got all this stuff going on in the South, and between here and the South, we're already stretched thin. What do we do now? Do we have enough troops to divert them to now, kind of like World War II, now have a two-front battlefield?
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think the North had the manpower or, the money or anything like that to be able to do that. The British could have basically just walked in from Canada.
Yeah.
And before the North knew what was happening, they could have.
British again.
Then you have to think about. But at that
the
point,
South.
At that point, does the South and the North come back together at least?
Come back together
to try to push the British out.
Push the British out. Yeah. So does the Civil War end because the enemy of my enemy is my friend now?
Yeah.
Right. So does that end? So now you get, the war all over again, where it's the United States colonies versus the British. Except this time the British have the advantage of no French help.
Yeah. And two militaries that are already wore out and stretched thin as it is.
Absolutely.
The North and the South are about give out anyway.
Yeah.
So even if you put the two militaries back together, you still have a ragtag, wore out military.
And there's still going to be infighting.
Oh,
because
yeah.
you don't just go from killing each other to smiling in 30 seconds. It just doesn't happen. Humans aren't designed that way. Even if the leaders go, well, no, we have to, cooperate. We got to put our differences on hold. The old, brothers may fight, but if you fight one, you fight the family. That's nice in saying, but when you're talking that level of brutality and that level of fighting, it doesn't just flip on a dime.
Well, it also begs the question, would they be able to even get the South back on board before the British had done so much damage that it was pointless?
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's not like tomorrow, oh shit, the British are here. Hey, Rob, I know we've been fighting with each other. How about we shake hands and give each other a hug? And we all go take our armies. And, there's going to be a very big growing pain. First, you're going to have to get the South to agree to do it.
Yeah.
Because at the time, the South may think, well, the British are just helping take care of our problem.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll make a deal with the British. Leave us alone.
Yeah.
Now the North has a two-front war. We'll keep pushing on them from the South. You do whatever you want to do up there.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you leave us alone. We'll help you take back the North.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's... it could have been a really, really interesting turn in history, which historically didn't happen because I think the British were a little busy at the time. But if the British had really decided, you know what, this would be about the time to attack. They're a little busy. They're already drained their main battlements. The British would probably try to, at least at first, come in with the theory, well, maybe side with the South at first, and then go, oh, by the way, did you read the fine print?
Get their two-front war on the North, and then at the end of the day, when they basically have the North back, go, oh, by the way...
did you read the fine print?
Really, I had to apologize for this. I don't know if you read the bottom of the paper or not, but now, guess what? We're coming. We're coming for you.
I believe that you would need these Union Jacks to put at your political buildings. just please make sure that you raise it a little bit higher. Thank you. We greatly appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, if the Royal Navy came in force at that point, I don't think there's much that the North could have done.
No,
Especially if it was a major thrust from from Canada
Yeah.
plus the Navy. I mean, it doesn't end well.
And like we were saying at the time, the British from Canada could have basically walked in on a red carpet because nobody's
Yeah.
looking north. They're worried about what's going on in the south. So
Yeah.
there would have been, at least at first, basically no resistance whatsoever. They would have just basically walked in from the north, and then eventually, of course, people would have figured out what was going on. But like we said, then they have to say, well, shit, we got stuff going on two different sides. Now what do we do?
Yeah, it would have been a lot. It would have been messy, I think. And I think what ended up happening would have been, I think the British would have come in. They would have blockaded both sides' ports, made their navies render them useless. And then it's just, okay, so, like a parent coming into a room with two kids fighting, right? Obviously you cannot be, you can't be trusted to, you obviously don't get along enough. You to that corner, and, come out, shake hands, because there's not much at that time the American Navy could have done against the Royal Navy. The Royal Navy comes in force.
The Royal Navy would have basically just decimated because the South didn't have much of a navy at all to speak of anyway.
No.
And compared to the Royal Navy, the North didn't really have anything at all. They basically could have come in and wiped everything out.
Yeah,
I
I
had control
agree.
of every port on the eastern seaboard in short order.
Very, very, very quickly, yeah. It wouldn't have taken much. And I mean, at this point, the Royal Navy, that's what they do.
Yeah.
That's, it's a Tuesday for the Royal Navy. Just ask France.
Poor France.
Yeah. So with that, I think we've bounced this around, and be sure to put your thoughts in the comments if you agreed or didn't agree with us. Shoot me a comment. I read most of them or all of them. I try to comment back on some. Honstar, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and stuff you got going on?
Everybody, I'm Honstar. You can find me on youtube.com/Honstar. I do fun Sunday night streams. 11 p.m. Eastern on Sunday nights. I do Jackbox Game Night, name that tune. Every now and then throw in an interview in there with the creator. The main thing you need to know is 11 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. If you show up to my channel, there's going to be something fun going on. And you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HonStarYT.
Awesome. And his link to his channel will be in the description as well. And until next time, take her easy, folks.